Well, good evening. This is Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and Geo Collaborate on this Friday, September 15th, 2023. This is a Friday update for the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment, the Fleet Response Working Group, all part of the All Hazards Consortium, so we can help to coordinate movement of fleet utility vehicles into disaster areas to restore power quicker, and also to help private sector organizations and government agencies share data between each other in a sensitive environment, all to protect life and property and help to restore power much quicker. So Hurricane Lee is in its final stages of approach to the northeastern United States and maritime Canada. It looks like winds as of 5 o'clock are 80 miles per hour. But once again, we've been talking about this the last couple of days. The wind field continues to expand. The winds are extending out, hurricane force winds, that is, 100 miles from the center. Hurricane force winds, remember, are 74 miles per hour and above. Right now, with winds of 80 miles per hour, so it's between 74 and 80. There could be some higher gusts in these storms as well. Tropical storm force winds extend out 300 miles from the center. That's why we are concerned about the coastline from Long Island, eastern Long Island, northward up into the Cape, eastern Massachusetts, Cape Cod, and on into down East Maine and northeast Maine as well. So this is what the satellite picture looks like. Let me take it full screen for you and just show you what's happening. What's of interest here is this cirrus outflow, which many of you have probably seen, a strict cutoff in the clouds going through central New York up into Canada. But this has been approaching the United States as the outflow of Lee is approaching. And now we're starting to get some impact on the Cape, on the eastern part of Massachusetts, Cape Cod, and those areas there where the clouds are moving in, getting a little thicker. The rain is just off the coast. Matter of fact, let's go over to Geo Collaborate. I wanted to show you that Lee does have a long life here. Look at the origin of Lee off the African coast as it came across the middle part of the Atlantic as a tropical storm here, and then became a hurricane, at one point a Category 5 hurricane. And now we're going to focus on where it is right now. This is the wind field. Again, it's a very, very large wind field. The tropical storm force winds aren't quite reaching eastern Long Island, but winds are gusty, and it is a windy day there. And so that's what's turning up the waters. So choppy conditions and potentially tides of 1 to 2 feet above average, above normally dry ground. And when you think about that, it's where the waves crash and roll up on the beach. Anywhere that's normally dry, about 1 to 2 feet above that is where this water could go at high tide. But notice, though, this is the advisory at 5 p.m., and the advisory at 5 p.m. says 80 mile per hour winds, gusts to 100 mile per hour winds. But notice this, the tropical storm force winds are now impacting Cape Cod. So that's going to be the story throughout this evening into tonight. As the storm moves further to the north, that's what we're going to see as the tropical storm force winds move into this area by 8 o'clock tonight, probably a little bit sooner. And then Saturday at 2 o'clock in the morning, down East Maine and going through Portland, Augusta, you should start seeing tropical storm force winds. Now that's 39 miles per hour and higher, up to 73 miles per hour. This is the storm force winds of 57 to 73 miles per hour. And so I think that those could touch part of the Maine coast, particularly where we see this area in yellow and green. That is the area where we're most likely to see flooding from heavy rain. You can see the rain just starting off, showing up in the radar right here, just off the coast of Cape Cod. That's going to be moving in bands and sheets of rain as the storm gets closer. But I think the real chance of flooding rain is here in eastern Maine and northeastern Maine, where this yellow area is. Also the red area, potentially flooding rains. Now, remember, the soil is already saturated. So those of you living in Connecticut and Massachusetts and New Hampshire and Maine, the soil is already wet. When you walk outside, your shoes probably get wet just trying to walk across your grass. Well, that is no good when you're talking about getting in tropical storm force winds in your neighborhood. That means that trees could come down, and certainly branches break and start to impact the electrical infrastructure there in Maine, and also down East Maine and down into southeastern New Hampshire, and of course on the Cape. Rain, I don't think is going to be a big issue for you on the Cape. I think it's really going to be the wind. And this is the story. As a matter of fact, let me take you over to some animations of the wind. This is at 5 o'clock this evening. You can see the storm out here in the Atlantic Ocean. And here is Cape Cod. Here is eastern Long Island. So you're shadowed by the mainland here a little bit, but the winds pick up. And they pick up to between 20 and 30 miles per hour just offshore. So that's what's kicking up the waves there. Fortunately, they're offshore, so it will limit some of the storm surge there. But as you get up into Maine, look at this, into Cape Cod, look at this. That's why there is a likely rise in storm surge of 1 to 2, perhaps in some areas 3 feet, because the wind is driving that water into Cape Cod Bay. And so that water has nowhere to go but to pile up and then overflow. And there are a lot of low roads there along the coastline. They are likely to be flooded. Now, I'm going to take you up here just a little bit so you can see Cape Cod. Maybe I'll back out just a little bit so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to go through a little bit of a time here. So this is Friday at 5 o'clock. So that is right now. We're going to go on into 11 o'clock. This is by 11 o'clock tonight. Look at those winds still piling into Cape Cod Bay. And then moving into tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. You can see the storm that's headed sort of towards the southern tip of Nova Scotia. But the wind field is impacting all of coastal Maine. And these winds are 20 to 30 miles per hour in the orange where you see here. So with higher gusts at times. And so we're going to continue on into Saturday evening. This is Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock Saturday, it looks like the center of the storm is right over the Bay of Fundy. And that's going to do some interesting things to the tidal variations there. 50-foot tidal variations in the Bay of Fundy. There's going to be pushing a lot of water into that bay. But notice, though, even at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, winds are gusting to 30 miles per hour on Cape Cod, maybe even higher. And so that's what we're looking at, even all up into Maine. It's going to be a windy and damaging day tomorrow in down East Maine and eastern Maine, where it is the pine tree state. And we know what happens when strong winds move up into that area. So be prepared for power outages. There are a lot of crews that are on standby that are moving into the area. As a matter of fact, I spoke earlier today with Tim Hayes, the Senior Director of Emergency Preparedness at Central Hudson Gas and Electric. Let's take a listen to what Tim had to say. Well, I'm joined by Tim Hayes right now with Central Hudson Utility. And Tim, I just wanted to ask you if you could describe for us how the utilities, if Central Hudson is preparing for Lee, or you're supporting any other utilities.
Well, fortunately, the track of Hurricane Lee right now, it doesn't put Central Hudson in a lot of danger. We're outside of the area where tropical storm force winds are likely to occur. So what we're doing is we are very closely monitoring it and making sure that we collaborate with the other utilities in the northeastern part of the United States and Canada.
Can you describe for us just generally where the responders are coming from?
They're coming from all over the country. Each individual utility is working with contractors in various locations. Each each company has their own group of contractors that they work with. So they're really streaming from many different parts of the country, and many are coming across the border from Canada as well.
Tell us why it's important to pre-stage crews before a storm like this.
The expectation of the customers and of the regulators are high, and getting the lights restored really helps the community get back to a normal operating condition. In addition, electricity is an integral part of several of the other major sectors within the economy and in the communities. So anything that affects electric will affect many of the other sectors as well, water and communications being primary. So having electricity restored as quickly as possible after an event helps really restore everything after an event. There's been really strong coordination across the industry. And I think the results of the restoration will really demonstrate that coordination.
And I really appreciate Tim talking about that. It's really important, all the partners that come together to help restore power quickly. I just came back just for a minute here to show you the wave action that's expected by this storm. It's really phenomenal because from Cape Cod on north into even the coastal areas of New Hampshire and certainly Maine, we're talking about this storm kicking up waves of 6 to 20 feet. Some of those waves will come very, very close and contact the coastline. And this is something that's going to be very, very dangerous. So if there's any critical infrastructure that's along the coastline there, it's likely to be impacted. That includes power lines, and those crews, as you heard Tim talk about, will be ready to jump into action as soon as the winds get below 35 miles per hour. They cannot raise those bucket trucks until winds subside below 30 miles per hour. So as far as impacts go, this is what we're talking about. And I included Long Island and the eastern part of Cape Cod, but also from Long Island to Connecticut, where large waves could be experienced along the coast. There's definitely going to be rip currents, so please stay out of the water. Surge of 1 to 2 feet above normally dry ground. And it looks like the soil is saturated in many places there as well. So there could be, from the gusty winds, some trees taken down as well. And I also wanted to just go up the coast just a little bit to talk about Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. High winds of 35 to 74 miles per hour are likely. Higher gusts could happen in some of these squalls that translate some of the stronger winds up above down to the surface, and then large waves along the coast. You just saw that graphic, that visualization of waves of 6 to 20 feet in some areas, and then heavy rainfall in northeast Maine. Soil saturated. You could see a couple of inches, maybe 3 inches of rain coming down quite heavily, being persistent in some of those spiral bands that set up over certain areas. So heavy rainfall in northeast Maine, and that saturated soil is going to make it difficult for everyone up in the northeast. So that's the updates. A little bit longer today. Apologize, but tomorrow is going to be a busy day with the storm impacting the northeast United States. So be safe, and thank a utility worker when you see them when they're restoring power in your neighborhood. They come from all over the country, as you heard Tim say. We'll have another update for you tomorrow, and we'll see you then.